Hey everyone, and welcome to Brawlhalla Weekly, episode 16. My name is partofthecreed, your host.
I'm DesignatedAsian, one of your co-hosts.
You got Frohned, the other host.
And this week our special guest is Stevenator, winner of BCS US 2v2 this week, and longtime top player in the community. But first, we're going to hop into the news for this week. So, on the dev streams, nothing too special. On the Tuesday stream, they showed off the new calculated taunt, which, by the way, the calculated taunt is probably one of the more complex taunts that they've showed off so far.
It's my favorite. It's
got
my
a lot
favorite
of
taunt.
moving parts. I was really surprised at how in-depth they went in making that taunt work. So, I mean, I've been using that taunt. It's pretty nice. They also teased off the new Goofy Game mode, which I believe they're going to opt to call it Scrambled. Which we did talk about that in the past, and we talked about its sort of implications. So that's pretty cool. And finally, they showed off. Well, they didn't really show it off. They teased some of the Halloween stuff. That's all gonna come out in this week's patch, and I assume on the next dev stream, that is probably out by now. You'll be able to see the more specifics as far as Halloween colors go. I don't know if you guys have any wishes as far as that goes.
Look great, good job. I'm pretending that we saw it, and it's oh my god.
But we didn't see it.
It had
to break the illusion.
It came out today.
We recorded
yesterday
before they showed it off. But
yeah,
hopefully it looks cool.
My only wish is that they call it Brawl Halloween.
You didn't you didn't vote for Brawlhalloween?
I'm on Team Brawlhalloween. Look, Brawlhalla and then Halloween, they work so well together. When you mash it together, it's Brawlhalloween.
See, you're going for the Venn diagram strategy.
Yes.
Whereas I'm going for the voting against whatever Sparky chose. So you go with Brawlhalloween.
This is the worst strategy. So, well, Brawlhalloween. Anyway, that's going to be a thing. Look out for it in this week. On the Thursday stream, they did some pretty standard stuff. They played some 2v2s. So, that's pretty cool. On the Friday stream, they didn't have a show match like they usually do, which I guess they just didn't have anyone for the spot. They played their BC Extras match, which was a little bit devoid of players. I think that when they tried to pull people for the Brawlball tournament, people weren't there. Frohned.
You should have texted me or something.
Look, man,
it was Brawlball.
It was super into Brawlball. Anyway, I played along with two people I'd never played before or seen before. I know Live with Shade is someone who does streaming. So, he's not no one or anything, but I had never played with him, and so we sort of lost. You remember, maybe Frohned had been there, wouldn't have lost. I blame Frohned for not watching the dev stream. So, that's a thing. They showed off the BCX prize pools, which is pretty awesome. There's a 50-50 split between 2v2 and 1v1, $50,000 prize pool total, brought down to $25,000 per tournament set, and it's pretty cool. Obviously it's money and it's about distributed as much as you'd think. The only thing is that 2v2 goes all the way down to top 8 gets prize pools, and 1v1 goes all the way down to top 16, which top 16 is a pretty decent chunk, and 16th place gets $200, which is not insignificant. So that's pretty awesome, and I'm just I'm super hyped.
It's getting $200 is winning, or it's winning the entire prize pool for a smaller money tournament in the community. That's pretty good in comparison. I mean, we're probably not going to see a tournament with anywhere near this size of money until the next BCX. So anyone winning money at this tournament is going to be, pretty good.
Mm-hmm. All right. With that, we're ready to move on to community news.
All right. Well, we have 3 partnered Brawlhalla streamers now. I guess technically, I wonder if it'd be technically more. Yeah.
It's more.
You mean with like Gravy Cancel and stuff?
No, all of Kingdom Esports
Yeah,
is
all of
is
Oh.
partnered.
I'm sorry.
It was a Kingdom Esports deal, so all the Kingdom Esports players are sponsored. I think legit Punisher streams on Hitbox.
He's been using Hitbox for a while now, but
Okay.
the recent partnership between Twitch and Kingdom Esports is the reason why Noel has his, and I assume that the rest of Kingdom Esports has that potential. So like theoretically, like Blood Diamond, Burnt Pan Compute, all of them could have that partnership.
Yeah.
Hi.
Yeah, but the big 3 that everybody knows about right now is Egg, Snoop, Daiku, and Noel.
All right, yeah.
Those are the big 3 partnered streamers.
Because basically on the dev stream they talked about it like vaguely, and they were like Egg Soup, Daiku, Noel, we're gonna celebrate them. So I guess Noel branches out to really all of Kingdom Esports.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's pretty awesome that we're getting all these partnered Brawlhalla streamers, because for a long time there wasn't really anyone. You had like Gravy Cancel, who got the partnership, but that's mostly to get prize pools for their tournaments. You had like Tuoware, who sort of played that game with bits and pieces. I think he spends more time with Street Fighter, right?
Yeah.
But we've never had a dedicated community Brawlhalla streamer who got partnered until this past week, and suddenly we have a whole bunch of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's great now. Like, it just shows how Brawlhalla is growing and how the streaming community and the people who produce content, at least on Twitch, how that area of Brawlhalla is growing, and that's great.
And plus, like, Egg Soup has the greatest emote. So, like, have you seen Eggs B?
Oh my god, he's a fantastic streamer. Gotta say, I love watching him, and XB is just
it's great.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, the most electrifying man in Brawlhalla challenged Duke to a money match
By
at
his
PCX.
podcast.
What?
Why am I here?
I'm just saying.
Why am I here?
Look,
Why didn't
Frohned
you
got
get
to
him?
read it, so Frohned is not going to disagree with this.
I'm not
Like,
biased in any way that my main man
Frohned read the script, Creed, all right?
Frohned, I
my
wrote
main
this
man
script for
Sparky
Frohned.
is, going up against my other main man Duke.
I mean, if you guys haven't seen
this is me trying to not sound.
I don't know why
biased.
you're siding with him, Creed, when you already lost to him once. Like,
look,
he's your
I have
your
to
enemy.
submit to the guy who beat me. He bested me, and now he's gonna best you.
This is your opportunity to have somebody avenge you, but instead you're just gonna keel over and be like, all right, Sparky's won one, might as well root for him to win another.
No, this is Creed's revenge for getting rid of the analyst desk.
Look, I don't know. I don't know if you've seen Sparky's little challenge, but he said very specifically that Duke is parry, and of course I can't support anything that's parry. What's
not parry?
I can't disagree.
No, scratch that. I don't know if y'all saw that survey, but 70% of Brawlhalla is aggressive, so there's like a 3 out of 10 chance that I'm actually parrying.
Oh my gosh, that made me laugh.
Look, man, I can't look at Stop Neutral Sig and not root for Sparky.
That's not my fault.
It's your fault. It's not
my fault that move's in the game. It's like me being like, I can't look at guitars and not hate guitars.
you hate guitars.
I do hate guitars, but I don't blame the player for it.
I'm pretty sure you blamed me a number of times.
Well, that's just because you play parry.
And this, ladies and gentlemen, is why I'm supporting Sparky.
I don't blame you for using the weapon.
Full circle.
All right, I think with that, we're ready to move on to tournament news.
PCS 2v2, Steven LDZ won. That was surprising. Yay. Egg Soup and Pugsy got second place. They took out the win against Boomy and Remy in the lower finals. which was kind of a surprise in the sense that last time they met up in a best of 5 set, Boomy and Remy pulled it out. So it looks like a lot of people have been progressing in the 2v2 scene as of late.
I mean, like, just that entire setup of Steve and LDZ taking first, Egg and Pugsy taking second, and Boomy and Remy taking third is pretty much a reversal, because Boomy and Remy, we've seen them play really solidly in past 2v2 tournaments. They've been taking first a lot lately. Egg, Soup, and Pugsy usually end up taking second, and then third place can be a toss-up. A lot of times it's whoever Twilight is teaming with. We've seen Twilight with Logic do some great things. You know, Stevenator and LDZ, they'd come in near third in the past, but I mean, now this is crazy. Stevenator and LDZ, we've never seen them play this well.
Yeah, they did really well, and they had some pretty insane stuff going on. This is interesting. This was the last 2v2 before BCX, and so the real question is, like, is this set? Is this what's gonna happen when we get into the BCX 2v2? Because going into this, Boomy and Remy were saying that they got it in the bag. So
I mean, Boomy were really saying they had it in the bag. They're like making predictions. They're like, you know, we'll get first. Egg, Soup, and Pugs, they've been practicing. They might get second. They might get third. You know, Crocky and Doppy might do really well. Steve and LDZ. And, you know, LDZ's not really a 2v2 guy. He'll probably get, like, you know, they won't get very high. Like, they made all these predictions, and just all of it got knocked out of the park. As far as BCX, you know, it's hard to tell how much of this is going to continue. Obviously, there's the factor of tilt, and it's just like Boomy and Remy, they lose one game, they lose 2 games, and suddenly they're going all downhill. And whether that happens at BCX, you know, no one can really predict that sort of thing. Along with the fact that, of course, at BCX, things will obviously change when it's a live environment in a LAN setting. So, you know, you get someone like LDZ who played a tournament with US East players against US East players. He has some considerable amount of lag, and when he goes to BCX, that will just not be present. So all sorts of different factors. I think, if anything, this tournament just sort of makes the whole thing a toss-up. Because before this tournament, everyone was pretty sure, Boomy and Remy, they have NA 2v2 on lockdown. And clearly they don't.
I mean, even bigger than that, of course you already said that it's going to be BCX, it's going to be a live audience. I mean, this is going to be possibly a bigger audience watching them play on a live stage than who was watching the main stage at Combo Breaker. It's possible. I actually don't know the numbers of ticket sales, so I can't actually make that claim. But there is knowing the venue where it's going to be, I know that it is entirely possible for there to be so many people that there can be that pressure built up. It's just, it comes with any kind of live sports with an audience.
Yeah, and I mean, that's always going to be present, and it's very interesting to see who is going to be able to adapt to that. You know, Stevenator, he played at Combo Breaker. Egg Soup, he played at Final Round. The other 4 players we've talked about, LDZ, Pugsy, Boomy, Remy.
Boomy played at Combo Breaker. Noel has won the most LANs out of anyone in the Brawlhalla scene.
You know, there are a lot of people. I'm not gonna list every single person who's played in a LAN. But like, you know, there's yes, Frohned, you've played in many LANs. You live in Atlanta. I'm well aware. I'm not gonna lie, I don't think you're gonna win BCS US 2v2.
By myself?
I'll give you a solid
0%
chance.
I've got it by myself. I've been practicing. I have no idea.
But I'm curious to see how much that stacks up between players, because Zeloxery, who won Combo Breaker, after Combo Breaker, he came back and he's like, man, I played in a LAN, I feel really confident, I am good at this game, I will train and I will do well, and he hasn't won a tournament since. So, you know, no shots against Zeloxery. He's saying that he needs more practice to do, and that's really understandable. But, you know, winning 1 tournament, winning 2 tournaments is never going to be an indication that, you know, I got this now. Daiko loses to Q4R. Things will happen, and things will happen at BCX. So there's always that to look forward to.
Also things, Brawl League Masters qualifiers are over. Here are the qualifiers. In EU, can I just ask you to like put up this whole list?
I mean, I'm gonna put up the whole list. Do you not just want to read this?
This is like 40 names, bro.
It's
Like,
not 40 names. It's like
Patty,
20 names.
Baki, Cake, Daiku, Dobrein, Aram, Logic, Multiple, Misline, Slug, Snacks, Spirit Wolf, Stardust, TB, Rain, Luxury. That's 16 times 2, 32 names.
All right, 32 names. You said
I
40.
rounded up.
Yeah. And then on the NA scene, you got Astronaut Boomy.
Boomy, Burnt Pan, Compute, Crocky, Doppy, Jellyfish, LDZ, Mini Vesta, Noel, Post Up, Pugsy, Stevenator, STTP, Wilson, Twilight, and Runchdy.
Seems like a pretty formidable list. So I mean, Brawl League has said that the Brawl League Masters is going to be after BCX. I don't think they have a specific time date, at least not as of the recording of this. Maybe they're working on that, but this is a really solid lineup from both sides, and it's going to be really cool seeing basically, like, Brawl League Masters has always been about high concentration of talent and putting up all these top players against each other. I believe it's round robin is the way they do it, so every person gets to play against every other person at least once. And then at the end they take a smaller bracket between the highest seeds within those round robins to compete against each other. So Brawl League Masters, get excited for that because that's going to be really cool.
Speaking, I have just one before we move on.
Yeah.
I have one small bit of tournament news coming up. Small or big, I don't know. You can see it as whatever you want. But anyway, since I work with Brawl League on Friday Night Brawl, we kind of have something coming up on Friday that is going to be really, really, really fun, hopefully. And that is a Brawlball tournament with
No gadgets.
big money prize. Like at least $200 prize pool. And that's not even counting the other possible bit of money that might be coming in. So it's probably
At least
$200.
$200.
It's going to be at least 200, maybe like 300.
Where y'all getting all this money?
And
Either of Brawl Ball gods supported it.
Spread the love.
Like aside from the prize pool, the money prize pool, there's going to be 3 Berserker packs given away, which is a Brawlhalla pack and a All Legends pack combined into one. So that's 3 of those. There's going to be possibly metadevs given away. Of course, there's going to be community codes given away, or community color codes given away. And I think there was something else as well. But overall, what we're trying to put together is something really fun in terms of Brawl Ball tournaments, because we haven't seen one of those in a long time. Like we saw it played on, you know, the stream, the official Brawlhalla stream on last Friday. But this upcoming Friday is going to be just a big tournament, hopefully.
I mean, we know you love your Brawl Ball.
I love Brawl Ball. And that's why it makes me super sad that I missed it last Friday.
I'm very curious how far this goes and where we see basically Brawl Ball Masters come from in this tournament. Like, you know, I could list you a bunch of top Brawlhalla, you know, 1v1 and 2v2 players, but top Brawl Ball players, like, you know, you got Frohned, you got like
I have
Magma
an
Bomb
entire
and Soda.
subreddit of people who are incredibly dedicated. You wouldn't actually believe how incredibly dedicated they are to Brawl Ball. They have their own internal communities set up of people who just play Brawl Ball against each other like all the time.
Why?
Because it's awesome. Awesome.
It's awesome.
It's awesome.
It's pretty cool. So, you know, maybe you can enter into that, Duke. You seem like you're very excited.
I don't know, like, I think of all of the custom game modes, Brawl Ball is like the best, but as far as I'm concerned, you just said, like, there's the world's biggest snow brawl tournament with a $50,000 prize pool, and I'd just be like, seriously? What?
But
Snowball.
it's Brawl Ball.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, it's the same to me.
I'll contest that there's some decent strategy involved in Brawlball.
It is competitive.
Put the ball in the goal.
You want to tell
it
soccer
is.
people that's how soccer works?
That's
You put the ball in the
soccer,
goal?
football.
No, soccer is
basketball.
run across the field, fall over, run across the field. You cry, somebody gets a card, and then somebody else runs across the field, somebody else falls over. It's that for like 80 minutes, and then the clock starts ticking down or up. I don't know. The clock's ticking a weird way.
Appreciation for regular sports.
You'll see.
Football's interesting. Hockey's a lot of hitting each other. I'll watch MMA. Baseball's running in a circle.
Baseball is running in a circle. Sure. So that's Sports Weekly, brought to you by Part of the Creed. We're gonna move on to our guest for this week. Stevenator, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you guys.
How's it going, Stevenator? So why don't you introduce yourself? Where are you from? How old are you?
So I'm Stevenator, obviously, and I am currently 14, gonna be turning 15 in the next month or so. Yeah.
Is your birthday at BCX?
No, my birthday isn't at BCX. I'm not that lucky. And I'm from Illinois, center of the United States.
Center.
Rough center.
Center of Combo Breaker.
Something like that. That's... Frohned, you have a question?
I do. You and Twilight were really big in the 2v2 scene in NA. That sort of fell apart, and you've been struggling to get back into 2v2. But yesterday you did amazing with LDZ. What was that journey like? And what happened to the previous team with you and Twilight?
So with Twilight, it was sort of like when two top players just sort of team up. Like, not to say that we weren't friends and that we weren't good, but I didn't really feel it as far as the synergy goes, both friend wise and gameplay wise. And so eventually I just felt the disconnect and I left, and then I teamed with Boomy, and that never happened as far as I'm concerned. And then because Boomy had left to Remy to play with me, and then Remy had teamed with LDZ while Boomy was gone, when Boomy and Remy came back together, me and LDZ were sort of left on the ends. So we just said, hey, we're good friends, let's team. And then it went well.
Nice.
Creed wants me to ask you, do you hope to make a comeback for BCX?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to try my best. I'm going to play a lot with LDZ since he's my teammate, and I now have access to practicing with the best player in NA. So I'm going to get him to tell me all his 1v1 wizard secrets, and I'm going to try to put those into play at BCX. I died
You
for
can do a
while.
land skimp?
Yeah, I'll do a few land skimps. I'll switch full-time to Olgrim. Just the
Nice.
classic things.
I mean, do you have any plan other than sort of practice with LDZ? You used to be a big Bodvar main. We've seen you with Val a lot. Do you plan on sort of sticking with Val? Do you have any sort of other strategies to make a big comeback? Obviously, you don't want to spill all your secrets here, but
I mean, the only thing that was gonna push me off of Val is if gauntlets got hit so hard that I cannot play them anymore. But I think I'm still fine as far as gauntlets go, and neutral light is still really good, so it still has grounded options. And sword's always been a good weapon. I don't think it'll ever be a terrible weapon. And so I think I'll probably just be sticking with Val. I have a pocket character that I may or may not bring out at BCX.
neat. That'll be fun. I look forward to whatever this pocket character is. All right. So, big question: how and when did you first discover Brawlhalla?
Well, Creed, a YouTuber and streamer that I believe you may or may not know of, by the name of Northern Lion, streamed Brawlhalla, and I saw the game and said, wow, this looks pretty fun. And then I started playing because I just take any recommendations on games that he suggests / plays.
So this was back in May of 2015. Well, April of 2015. Mm-hmm.
Back when he won the first big streamer community.
Are you talking about the Skin in the
thing.
Game tournament?
Yeah.
Skin in the Game.
It was-
tournament.
Skin in the Game tournament was a little bit later, if I recall
No,
correctly.
that was
It
about.
Yeah, it was a little bit later.
was a little bit
It was
later.
a little bit later. Because that was like a month or two after I joined at least.
Yeah, I remember watching Skin in the Game and being like, they're really bad. So I
and
had
he was chucking
some
weapons
amount of
across
fun.
Titan's End, so that
Northern
counts.
Lights
No, weapon
strategy-
throwing's good.
Northern strategy was basically to take a hammer and wait off the ledge and just hammer recovery everyone.
Because that was completely uncounterable then. Well, anyway.
So
So you've been in the community a long time, and you've been in a lot of clans. Can you tell us how your clan history has affected you?
So, I've been in, I think, a total of 9 clans, counting, like, different iterations of the same clan as its own separate clan. Those are, I started off where if you ask any old Brawlhalla player what clan they started in, every single time they will answer Jotunheimer. And then mine went Kappa, and then Omni, which turned into CG, which turned into Ren. And then I left Ren for JV4, where I was then poached into Straw Hats, and then which turned into Boo, and now I'm back into Ren. So, I mean, like, I'm famously called the Clan Hopper by many of those whose clans I've left. And, I mean, at this point, clans, I guess, like, they still mean what they used to me, but, like, I'm gonna try to stay faithful to clans more often now and not just be in a million at one time.
I mean, do you mind getting a little more specific with the clans? Because some of these sound like sort of throwaways. Omni sort of turned into CG, sure, and you went from JB4 to Straw Hats, but how long did Straw Hats last? And did any of these clans sort of make a big impact in terms of your Brawlhalla career?
Kappa did. Kappa was the big
Well,
one.
Straw Hats.
You're actually not that far off.
Straw
Like,
Hats
Joe
turned into.
did nothing for me. Joe did nothing for me because it was super disconnected and it had like 50 people in the same clan who nobody knew each
Only
other.
50?
Yeah, you're right, like 100. And then the Kappa was Kappa when I played in my first crew battle and we lost to JV4, of course. And I'm still salty about that to this day. And then Omni was a clan that I got convinced to join by a friend of mine who was also in Kappa at the time. His name was Flesh Vortex. And then that clan got sponsored by CG, and that fell through.
We don't
And
talk
turned-
about that anymore.
We don't talk about it.
Yeah, we don't. And then that turned into Ren, which was that clan I think was like a big hub for most of my like gameplay improvement because everyone there just wanted to help each other. And then JV4 was where I experienced like the most community in a clan that I think I ever will. And then
JB4 was awesome.
yeah, JV4 was indeed awesome, as Creed wants me to say, I'm sure. And Straw Hats was just a transition clan, basically, into merging JV4 with Boo, or half of JV4. The good players.
Oh wow.
Straw-
Okay, Steve, I hear you.
Well, Straw Hats became Lemons, and then
No, Lemons.
No, Lemon
Going
was before
backwards.
Straw
Lemons
Hats.
first?
Lemons
Is before Straw
turned
Hats.
into Boo, and then EXO left Boo, came into JV4, took JV4 people into Straw Hats, and then took Straw Hats back to Boo. And then
it's been
Boo was
way too
reborn.
long for me to remember any of this.
Lemons was before Lemons was like the
The first.
Why do I
first
think
one.
The first
Straw
one.
Hats
Because I think it was Lemons
Tech.
A and
Tech.
Lemons 1 was
Oh,
their
yeah, Tech.
first.
Don't forget
like,
Tech.
Oh,
was
that's
before
why. Because I'm forgetting Tech.
And then finally, like everyone in Boo is too good and started to get sponsored and stuff. So I just like went back to Ren because I was really like bad and I felt like all the people in Boo were like way too good. And I'm like,
And now
I
you're in
wanna-
Ren.
Yeah, now I'm in Ren.
And you
everything
think
is
Ren is sort of helping fuel your improvement, basically? Because I mean, you did just win a lovely 2v2 tournament.
Yeah, I'd say Ren is like somewhat helping me improve. I mean, I obviously like play a fair amount with people in my clan. I play what it might have helped me is that I've played 2v2s, like ranked 2v2s like over 20 games with like everybody in Ren. So, I play with everybody so I could build synergy with whatever strategies might be there. So, it certainly helps me a lot for 2v2s.
Nice.
Cool. So I also didn't write this question. You have problems with tilting when it came to tournaments, an issue that's not common in Brawlhalla.
It's not uncommon. What do you mean it's not common? It's very common. Do you know how to read questions?
No, I just want to point out how much of a dick you make me sound.
What?
Hey, Steve, you have a problem with tilting in tournaments. How did you overcome this? Did you overcome this?
Yeah, it's gotten better. It still exists in like a small amount. Not in 2v2s though, because LDZ is just like he's super good mindset wise, which I think is a reason why he's always able to like stay on top and make crazy comebacks and reverse 3-0 and then 6-0 Twilight in like grand finals. Like nobody else can really like do that as like seemingly easily as he did. So he's really good on the mindset. He always keeps it like if we win or lose, like we win or lose as a team, it's nothing individual, which is like a lot of help for me. And so I think my mindset is really improving. It's almost to like a place where I don't tilt at all during tournaments, no matter if I get sent into losers or not. So I think that's also playing a huge part in my improvement recently.
I mean, that is 2v2, but do you feel like this is helping you in your 1v1 experience too? Like, should we expect you to come out in the next BCS 1v1 and just...
Are you hoping to make a comeback from BCX?
You know, we'll see. I think it should help me in 1v1s, hopefully. I mean, I still get tilted from time to time. Like in a recent tournament, LDZ managed to reverse 3-stock me, and then from there on out, I was done with that tournament. But unless it's an extreme case like that, I'm usually pretty good about tilting nowadays, and I think that's gonna maybe boost my recent placements in 1v1s and future placements.
Giving advice to people out there who tilt? Because I know that's just sort of a common thing in Brawlhalla in general.
Just like don't get mad at the game or your opponent. Those are the two worst things you can do when tilting. Like if you're gonna even choose a way to tilt, don't get mad at your opponent for any reason, and do not get mad at the game screaming "Axe is stupid" like all around your house. That is not a good idea. So I mean, like if you're gonna tilt, I don't know.
Get mad at your headphones. Just throw them across the room. You can replace those.
I bet.
All right. So now we're gonna move on to sort of the standard top player questions that I like to ask. First off, what games do you like to play in your free time besides Brawlhalla?
I used to play a lot of League of Legends, and my friends still play, but I don't really play anymore. I'll play like maybe a game every week or something. I've been playing. I always like find myself going back to Rainbow Six Siege because that's like, in my opinion, CS:GO doesn't really suit my shooter.
I don't understand why you two are shaking your head like you've never played Rainbow Six Siege.
I haven't played it.
Get out of here, Fro.
It's not that I haven't played it.
I haven't played it in a while.
You're not. Lame Frohned.
And aside from that, I mean, it's pretty much just Brawlhalla and Rainbow Six Siege nowadays. Since like I'm trying to not do bad in school, I pretty much just come home and play Brawlhalla and maybe play Rainbow Six Siege.
Nice. So if you weren't dedicating yourself to becoming a top player in Brawlhalla, what other hobbies or careers might you be pursuing?
So, before I played Brawlhalla, I was like getting really big into Melee, and me and all my friends were like, we were building a community within us, and we were like hosting tournaments and just having a lot of fun with the game. And when I discovered Brawl, we were actually starting to go to weekly tournaments and beat a few people. So I think I could have actually been like pretty decent, at least in my region, at that game, if not for Brawl. But I mean, Brawlhalla, I think, has provided more fun and success than I think I ever could have found in Melee, because it's a lot harder to get good at that game, I think.
Pretty fair. And of course, you are currently in school and
Yeah.
going through all those motions.
Yeah, the fun ones.
So where does your IGN come from, your in-game name? And I guess notably, you did change your name from Stevenator546 to just Stevenator. You know, did that 546 mean anything?
The 546 meant jack. It meant literally nothing. It was just 3 numbers that I picked, and for some reason, when I was like 8 years old, when I first made my name, I didn't know how to count, so I went 546 instead of 456. So,
Nice.
since there was no significance to them whatsoever, I took them off, and the rest of the name literally just comes from my name, Steven, and then Ader. So, it's a pretty simple name in the grand scheme of things. Not as simple.
Where does the Ader come from?
I don't
he
know.
ate her.
Frohned's got it.
How'd you Ader? I didn't.
I mean,
know.
I fall somewhere a little bit above Daiyaku for originality of names, because it's more than just my first name, but it's not much better, to be honest. At least Daiyaku is a cool name.
I mean, now Daiku has like a "the" in front of his name, so he's the Daiku.
That's just because ego, most likely.
All right. And finally, if you had to pick just one legend, out of all factors, including, you know, who you like to play and lore and things like that, who's your favorite legend in the game?
Probably still Val, just because she's so much fun to play, and like the amount of defense and her stats work perfectly with gauntlets, I think, because you're just fast enough and have just enough dex to execute exactly what you want to. As far as lore goes, I think Bodvar's a pretty cool character, because he just like let himself into Valhalla.
But if you had to pick one, it would be
Val.
Val. All right, neat. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast this week, Steve.
Thank you for having
Good
me.
luck in future Brawlhalla tournaments, and good luck at BCX.
All right.
Adios. All right. With that, we're gonna move
What are
on
those?
into the balance.
Are those just like ram
No,
chips?
these are Russian chocolates that
Okay.
I have for Dobrein when he gets here.
Okay. So I'm glad you have.
So you have his own chocolate, like from his
He
grocery
told me-
store, that you're gonna
He
hand him
told
and
me
be
that
like,
he never gets to get these.
Oh.
So I'm just saying he always has a prize here in the other motherland.
All right. Shout out to Dobrein for his chocolate. But you know he's not our special guest this week. He was here 2 weeks ago. Right now,
should ask Steve what chocolate
Steve,
he
what
I'm
wants
gonna
chocolate do
at
you
ask
want?
Steve what chocolate he wants at BCX. It's not a thing that's
Just hold up
happening.
a
That wasn't
sign.
one of the question. If you wanted to ask that question, you could have asked that question, dude. But you didn't.
No, I had to stick to the
You don't have
script.
to stick to the script. You
The
didn't stick to
script
the
that made me
script.
the asshole. It's like, hey, Steve, you've been sucking for the past week. Are you gonna stop sucking? That's what your
Hey,
questions
I know
were.
I know you lost your first place positioning yesterday in BCX. How are you going to come back from this devastating first place loss?
We're gonna move on to the balance meta discussion section of the podcast and start off by talking about jump changes. So we talked about jump changes last week. We talked about them generally. We were like, you know, 2 frame startup, 5 frames recovery. How does that affect the game? But they did change it up a little bit. It has finally rolled out. It is in the live build. Except now it has 2 frames of recovery, and no recovery after a successfully hit move. So I do want to briefly talk about that and see what your guys' opinions on it, because when I played around with it once it went out, I almost just didn't notice it. Like, it feels a lot less sticky, and I mean, that's good that it doesn't feel sticky. It helps the people coming into the game and people who are sort of used to the way it was, but I do want to see it bumped back up to 5. Maybe not now, but eventually, because I don't feel like it's as punishing as it's supposed to be, like, to begin with, right? The point of these jump changes was basically to put down this buffer of 2 frames and 5 frames so that jumping didn't feel as good as far as people who just kept jumping constantly and were able to use the air to their advantage and say, I can do whatever I want in the air. And this is nice that, you've got the 2 frames of startup to make it on par with dodge, and the 2 frames of recovery for people who just land. But I don't know. I feel like it's not enough, but I know that a lot of people are super happy with it. So what do you guys think?
I think it needs to be 3 seconds.
3 seconds?
3 seconds, Jesus Christ, Frohned. He needs 120 frames of sitting
Ladies
there.
and gentlemen, this is what happens when we approach podcast.
Not
in the
100,
morning.
180.
Let me correct that. 3 frames, not 3 seconds. 3 seconds would be.
I mean, that's a dodge cooldown, so basically the same thing.
Makes sense to me.
Alright, yes, please continue. 3 frames. What's great about 3 frames?
You killed me. But yeah, I think 2 frames itself. I mean, the difference between 1 frame obviously is very, 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 very little. But 3 frames is, what is that? What is that? 5% rather than like 3% of a full 60 frame, like 1 second window. I mean, it that small like little bit is just just slightly more noticeable. So to be, I don't know exactly how to describe it because I'm still waking up today, but I mean, you saw how 5 seconds of recovery. No, 5 frames of recovery on the back end of jumps felt. Now, giving it 2 frames startup, 3 frames on the back end, that's 5 total frames of forced downtime, whether it's startup or recovery. You combine it, it's forced downtime, essentially, where you can't...
Between, like, bunny hopping, basically.
Yeah, where you can't do anything. So you're essentially getting, if someone wants to continue just jumping, you're essentially running into that 5 frames that you were that people were experiencing before, still, which was a pretty good amount. It's just once it led back into the startup frames, 7 frames is a bit long to not be able to press any buttons. So,
and yeah, that's pretty fair. I just think that bunny hopping of jumping over and over again is something that we don't. It's not something I think we need in Brawlhalla. And
it's gonna come back. Like it's not. It's far from dead, and I think that's kind of your point with your questioning is that with the current recovery as it is, you're still capable of bunny hopping. I think if you really want to get into it, I'm pretty sure BMG would have loved to have had an extra 2 months to play around with jump and make sure that it is in a spot that they like. But as it stands right now, it was a little bit of a nerf, and it was enough that they're comfortable with it being in game and not breaking the game before BCX. I don't hate it, but also part of my feelings around it are the fact that a lot of people are still dealing with like the shock of it. So a lot of people have just generally jumped less just because of it, in the same way that patches always do.
Yeah, but like you were saying, I think that it's far from dead. And once people adjust to the timing, I think it'll be totally viable to keep jumping over and over again, which I think is sort of the point of why these jump changes were put in place, is to avoid letting that happen. So, obviously from now to BCX, nothing's going to change, and that's fine.
I don't know. They said, do jump changes, jump changes technically count as gameplay changes, but not necessarily as balance changes.
It's going to affect the balance. I'm pretty sure the only things that they're going to add for the next 2 weeks is cosmetics.
We have seen gameplay changes in between balance change weeks for weapons and legends. So if something does need to change with jumps or something else that doesn't necessarily affect how weapons or character sigs work, then we could possibly see it, because they've done that in the past.
The issue with that is that jump changes, you're right, don't affect characters and sigs. They affect everything. jump changes affect how every single person plays the game. And changing that between now and BCX is just, it's massive. It was massive when they did it last week. It'd be massive if they tried to change it again. So I don't want to see them change it from now to BCX. I think it's fine. It's locked in. Any and all changes they do from now to BCX can be like, cosmetics, like you said, or maybe even just like re-hitboxing the animation on SIGs is like as far as they need to go if certain.
I feel like that would be
even
too much
that,
of a balance.
Right? But jump changes definitely like not the time to change it. That being said, after BCX, I would like to see them sort of slowly bump up that recovery number. Is like, okay, 1 week we add a frame, and next week we add another frame, and see how the community gauges that, and see how the gameplay changes through that process. I think that'd be really beneficial in terms of sort of curbing where jumping is now and jumping was, because like Duke said, the reason people aren't jumping now is because it was a pretty shocking change, but meta always takes its time to come back around, and I think the meta will come back around to jumping.
I think I 100% agree. I just think there's other ways to do it than just purely frames and recovery. And I think another thing that would help it out is if they do end up going 5 frames with it, is animations help sell the logic of the recovery. So if a guy is like, this is gonna sound so stupid, but like if the character lands and he stumbles every time, you're gonna be like, all right, I can understand why I can't do anything while I'm stumbling. Not that your character should fall over every time you jump, but like you get the idea. The animations will help sell like the startup if the guy has to wind up his jump.
Like I wouldn't mind like a superhero landing sort of thing.
Honestly,
where they put their hands down as they fall, and like to break their fall. Like that seems like a pretty logical thing, and then they get back up and then they can do their move.
I mean, honestly, all they have to do really is just make the current landing animation more pronounced. That's all they have to really do, just by 4 frames, and that's not that much.
Anyway, so like you were saying, animations super helpful. Next, I'm going to move on into the actual balance patch and a lot of the things that happened this past week. We're not going to get into all of them. We don't have time in just this segment. We'll probably finish it up next week. But obviously, we have a lot of time between now and BCX, and we do want to talk about balance every week on the podcast in that time. But without balance patches, there's not that much we can talk about, so we are going to space it out a little bit. Prominently is Sword. Sword got one change, and that was to Downlight, which is kind of a big change, because Downlight is sort of the starter for all these sword strings and sword combos that people like to use. So Sword, Downlight, what happened is they reduced the hitbox coverage toward the back end and decreased variable force from 9 to 5. Basically what this means is when they say back end, it's like it's toward the player. And so this reduced it so that people who basically were standing behind a player didn't get hit by a downlight, because of course the downlight is intended to hit in front of the person using it, and that's where the animation lies. But because of how the hitbox lines up and the hitboxes of your opponent, a lot of times it'll start hitting people who are actually behind the person using it. So they curbed that back, which is pretty good. And then they decreased the variable force from 9 to 5. Originally, variable force used to be 0. They bumped it up to 9 to basically make it much harder to use downlight Sair when you were like as a kill option when your opponent was in deep red or something like that. Clearly that was too much, and now they reduced it back to 5. But I'm curious to think, like, downlight Sair, I feel like I've heard people complain about it in the past, but everyone's so used to it now that no one really bothers. Do you think that it's good to let it happen in sort of slightly higher healths, or was it better back when it was 9?
I think downlight Sair is like the main sword kill option. Like,
so is that a good
they
thing
do
or
a
a
bunch
bad
of
thing?
damage
Like,
with a bunch of other stuff.
sword
and
Or
then they
it's
kill
just sword
downlight Sair.
downlight into anything, really. Like, because Nair can kill at certain percents, Dare off stage. I mean, it really... That's sword versatility.
I think a lot of people are upset with Sword, but not a lot of people have come to a consensus on the reasons why they get frustrated playing against Sword. Some people kind of generally just say a sword is good at a lot of things. I don't think Downlight Sarah is the reason why sword is a strong tool.
So what you're saying is it's fair that they reduce that variable force from 9 to 5, make it a little bit easier for people to kill with Downlight Sarah.
I think that's fine. Downlight Sarah that's fine. I would be more annoyed if they're like Sarah cooldown is 0, because then everyone's gonna be twilighting around, you know. Like I'd be more annoyed if they're like Dare cooldown is like 0, because then everyone's gonna just go for Dare Gimps. Like that stuff to me is a little bit more frustrating to play against than Downlight Sarah.
Yeah, and that definitely makes sense. I mean, I think that Downlight Sarah is something. It's been a thing for a while, but there've always been other options: Downlight Dare, Downlight Nair, Downlight Recovery, and at higher healths, you know, it's pretty viable to use a Downlight Nair as a kill option. I've seen people start doing that at higher health. So, you know, honestly, I wouldn't mind. Like, I think it'd be okay if it remained at 9 and basically forced people to say, at higher health, start using Downlight Nair. Like, use the chase dodge to get up to your opponent. It's not unviable. But as it stands, you know, it went from 9 to 5. Now people will have a slightly easier time using that Downlight Sarah. Which, you know, either way, there's a kill option somewhere there. All right, moving on to Hammer. Hammer got 2 main changes. They weren't big, but I guess they were kind of notable. Hammer Ground Pound got increased fixed recovery on release from 1 to 2. So, you know, if you're trying to use Hammer Ground Pound and you decide you don't need to, you know, go down and hit your opponent, once you release it, then you basically add an extra frame to your recovery. Down air on Hammer also got basically the same treatment, increased fixed recovery on miss from 1 to 2. You know, Ground Pound and Down Air, both pretty strong options for Hammer. Do you think Hammer needed more? Do you think Hammer was in a fine spot? Opinions?
Frohned has more facial expressions than me, so I assume he has more things he wants to say.
That's a lot of things.
Honestly, Hammer was like a middle of the road weapon already. I don't think it really needed any changes, but maybe there's something there I was missing. I don't actually play Hammer that often, so.
Duke, you play Hammer.
I don't understand why they did this. I'm sure somewhere out there's someone upset with Ground Pound and Dare, but honestly, like, the number of Ground Pound kills I've gotten is probably on one hand. It's really predictable in my opinion. It's got fantastic force, and it's got a better hitbox than like Bow Ground Pound for like a roughly equivalent force in my opinion. But it's got a much harder startup, so you can't rest with Ground Pound. You kind of have to just like throw it out and hope it hits. The upside of it was that you get a recovery afterwards, and that's sometimes free. So I would not have been surprised to see the recovery get nerfed, but to see the Ground Pound get some recovery is a little bit interesting, especially because who the crap is spamming Hammer Ground Pound? Hammer Dare, I can understand some recovery added, but like...
You said Ground Pound into recovery, and I think that addresses this more than anything, is people who use a Ground Pound basically as a bait, not necessarily to hit. If it hits, that's fine. But they use the Ground Pound knowing that it's probably not going to hit. As soon as their opponent is out of range of it, they release the Ground Pound and get an instant recovery. And that's something that's been powerful on Hammer. That's something that's plagued a lot of people. I've seen people fall into that all the time. And, you know, I'd say that the edge guard scenarios on Hammer are kind of stale. It's like Ground Pound recovery, recovering Ground Pound. So I think that sort of addresses this pretty directly, is to say that, you know, if you're going to use the Ground Pound, if you're going to try to let it go afterwards, like, you can't just immediately use a recovery. You got to add some recovery in there.
To me, this is a worse version of Sword Ground Pound Dare Gimps. Like, it's like, if you fall for it, then you get killed. That's unfortunate, but at the same time, this is like, sure, it's less inputs, but it is a lot slower to do than sword ground pound dare, which puts out a lot of pressure, doesn't put you in an awkward spot. If you mess up the hammer ground pound into a recovery, you're punishable. You're kind of stuck there. So I understand that there's a lot of people who have their opinions about hammer on the wall, and I agree that it can be strong, but I don't necessarily think that this was really, really necessary, especially because like bow.
Yeah.
Just bow and katars are both really strong on the wall. Like, when's the last time you saw someone with a hammer win out against a bow? Like, when's the last time you saw someone do a ground pound into a recovery? And I'm not saying specifically against LDZ, but like Remy or even you, Creed, you play bow on the wall and katars on the wall. Like, it's at high level, this kind of stuff just doesn't really happen. It's a little bit too predictable.
And that's pretty fair. Although, again, these balance patches, they are meant to address all levels of play, and I have to imagine in lower levels, like ground pound and recovery, it hurts a lot of people. So, it is increasing recovery from 1 to 2. It's not a huge deal, but it is there for a reason, and I think that's sort of what it's meant to address. With that, honestly, I think we're done with the podcast. I know, Duke, you have somewhere to be. This was a little bit short. We'll be back next week. Hopefully we'll all be a little bit more awake next week.
At a more reasonable
but
time.
We'll see you then. At a more reasonable time. But we'll see you then. And thanks for watching. I do want to thank our patrons for this week, Cluns and Expired. Thank you for supporting the podcast as usual. And bye for now.